Hi everyone, welcome to Living Overseas on a Dime. My name's Noel and this is our channel here where we talk about early retirement, traveling the world, and also the things that help you get there like finances. That's our focus today. Now, as many of you know, the last year has been very difficult for anyone who is living on a fixed income, living on their investments, as we've watched the stock market just tumble down, down, down. So today's video, we're going to talk about some strategies we can have to help mitigate that. Now, first of all, I'm not a financial advisor and I don't have any qualifications that way, and this is not financial advice, but hopefully this will give you some ideas on what the heck we can do in this environment right now financially. So plain and simple, this video is about survival. The markets have crashed. For us, it's been a worst case scenario. We retired at the end of 2021, and shortly after, the markets started slowly to come tumbling down. The whole time we were traveling, watching it go down, 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 down. And this is the money we were planning on living on and are planning on living on to this day. So it definitely took a bit of a negative turn as we were watching as we traveled. Now, we had about a year of savings put aside to make sure that we could travel. So that was something that I strongly recommend to anyone who's approaching retirement. Now, our approach is for early retirement, but this equally goes for people who are doing a more traditional retirement. So in this video, we'll talk very specifically about how to survive on a fixed income, be that from your Social Security, some sort of pension that you got from your workplace, but also in relation to investments, which right now are in a bit of trouble. Let's not pretend, right? So first of all, we're going to look, what phase are you in? Because that kind of determines something. We'll deal with it a little bit quickly because the different phases are kind of not important into the strategies you utilize. So there's kind of two phases that we're talking about here. First is the pre-retirement preparation phase, and then the second one is the post-retirement phase, which are a little bit different, but they have a lot of similarities. So there is a bit of a subtlety as to whether or not your money comes from a pension, Social Security, or say retirement investments, especially if you have a fair amount of money in equities, which right now are all the way down. I think that the strategies are similar, but we're not really going to talk about investment advice because that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about survival and ways to mitigate damage, really, and how to make it beyond this step right now. So if you're in pre-retirement, let's talk about that for a second. So pre-retirement, the first and simplest thing you can do is just wait to retire a little bit. Wait until the market stabilizes or at least is starting to go back up again. Because as we've seen with the market in the last year, it's been ugly. And while you're waiting for this time to go, you should continue to add to your investments because right now is probably a once in a generation opportunity to dollar cost average and put the money in. And then when it comes up, it's going to be that much higher. So I wouldn't say stop investing, that's for sure. Not that this is advice, but for me personally, if I was in the position that I was before retirement, I'd be going, yeah, this is great. I can put all that money in and keep building. And then when it comes back, it's going to come back that much stronger. Another thing I would strongly recommend, and this is based on my personal experience, is have at least a 1 to 2 year cash buffer based on what your living expenses are. That way, when the market crashes, because as we've seen, it is going to crash. It's just a question of when. That way you have some time to figure out what you want to do and whether or not you want to implement some of these ideas that we're going to talk about today. So post-retirement. Now, this is very much our situation. Like I said before, we retired at the end of 2021, and very shortly after, the stock market crashed and continued to crash. So we were lucky and we had some cash buffer that we could live on. But now we're at the point where that is no longer the case. Our cash buffer is pretty much exhausted. It's been a solid year and change. And now we're sitting here going, okay, what's next? What do we do? How can we mitigate this so we're not dipping into our savings, or no, sorry, not our savings, so we're not dipping into our investments at the worst possible time when the market is at all-time lows? Because if you chip away at that, all of a sudden when it comes back, you have much less capital to build upon. So this is a big problem. So the options are pretty simple. The first option, which some people advise to do, is absolutely nothing. Do nothing. Sit, wait, pray a little bit. Do nothing and pray, I guess you could say. Just sit there, hope the market comes back in the next year, take as little out as you can, and hopefully it'll grow again. Now, A lot of the projections are talking about recession right now, so I'm not personally comfortable with that. If we were doing that right now, we'd be dipping into our investments. And like I said, when it does come back, hopefully, it won't come back in the manner that it would have if we didn't touch it. So the next option, and this is one that very strongly applies to people who are already retired. And this is where we're talking about, you have a fixed income. What sort of survival strategies do you really have? Well, there's not many. There's really two. Live with less, make money. Now, you're like, well, I'm on a fixed income, right? Okay, that's fine. So then let's focus on the live with less. What sort of things can we do to maximize the money we have to live more frugally? Let's not say cheap. I don't like that word. Frugally. You know, back with the founding Americans and Canadians, living frugally was actually Ben Franklin. He was a very big person who talked about living frugally all the time, and it was considered a quality. In our day and age now, with rampant consumerism, a lot of people kind of forget that living frugally and more simply isn't a bad thing. You don't have to be addicted to Amazon and purchase every day. You know, we're guilty of that ourselves, but this year traveling showed us, what do you need to live? You need a decent place. You need to have sunshine and nice weather and food, really, and community too. Community is important, and that's something that we look for in the places we're considering. But really, when we're talking about living frugally, let's focus on that. Okay, so you got a fixed income. What can we do to cut down our expenses? First of all, where do you live? If you live in the United States or Canada or Europe or the UK, it is expensive. So as we've shown in our videos where we talk about living overseas, you can radically decrease your expenses by moving to a new country. Now, of course, there's going to be an increase in cost initially, but when you get there, rents and cost of living generally are much lower. But you need to do your research as to the country that you choose. And our channel is very much about this, choosing different countries, as you'll see in some of the videos to come. The two biggest expenses you can cut down on, and these are the ones that I personally follow to make your cost of living much less. The first one, the biggest one, is rent. The place that you live is going to largely determine how much money you have after you pay for your rent. It's pretty simple. That also goes for your mortgage if you own your house. Mortgage is a little bit more complicated because getting out of a mortgage is harder, especially in the environment right now. To sell your place, it's not so great. But let's say you rent, okay? You're on a fixed income and you rent. Well, you can look for a cheaper place. Now you'll have to wait until your lease is up likely, or look at the penalties and figure out if it's worth it. In other countries, it's much simpler to live cheaper. Let's not pretend. You know, the rents for a lot of major cities in the United States and Canada are easily above $2,000 US a month. So this adds up really quickly, whereas you look at other countries, and it is below $1,000 a month for rent, if not even less. Some countries you can get into the $500-600 range, especially if it's just a one bedroom. So you need to really consider both the location of where you're living and the rent that you're paying. Now, you don't want to live in a hovel, right? We're not saying that. Some of these places that you can get for between $500 and $1,000 are very nice. You just have to be comfortable with not having all of the amenities that maybe you would have in your home country. So this is step one. Cut down, downsize, as we could call it. Downsize your main expense, which is where you live. Number two, this is the second largest expense, I think, in most people's life. That is their vehicle. If you can live in a place that you do not have a vehicle, you no longer are worried about repairs. You're no longer worried about vehicle insurance. You're no longer worried about any of the things getting in an accident. Well, though that can happen on buses too. But if you rely on public transport, especially in countries outside of the United States and Canada, all of a sudden, maybe you're paying 50 cents or $1 for each ride, and the monthly rates can be incredibly low. They can be $20, $30, maybe $50 for a monthly pass, and that allows you to go anywhere you want. Now, if you're on a fixed income, all of a sudden, cutting out the vehicle and your rent down to an affordable level makes all of that stress that you're experiencing through not having enough money. Well, it's not the money that's the problem, it's the expenses that are the problem. So in those two ways you can cut down. Now, let's look at number three, which we haven't really talked about, but number three is much more difficult, especially in this incredible inflationary environment we're in right now. You have food costing ridiculous amounts. I think I saw lettuce for $8 or $9 the other day, maybe 12 even. It blows my mind how much food is in Canada right now. You also have littler expenses like coffee and tea. And you know what? I don't think cutting back on those things is really a great idea, especially if they bring you happiness in your life. You can maybe switch brands or something, look for a cheaper brand, or maybe eat a little bit less of a specific thing that's more expensive. I know we've been switching to pork recently because it's cheaper, especially compared to chicken breasts here. It's just unbelievable how expensive some of the meat is in Canada right now. But you know what? Those little things, you still got to eat. You still got to enjoy life. You know, I think that decreasing your rent and decreasing a vehicle cost to hopefully nothing will not only increase the amount of available money you have, it will be good for your health because you'll be walking more and you'll be able to get out and around more. Now, this is difficult in Canada, the United States. I'm not going to pretend, because you need a place that allows you to have the weather that you can walk outside. So the second option, which we haven't, you know what, I think for some people they're like, oh my God, I can't do this. And you know what? That's fair. If you worked your entire life and you're like, I don't want to do anything else, that's cool. You got your fixed income, you earned it. So I would focus on the more frugal options if you could. However, the second option is make more money. Well, you're like, how can I? I'm 70 years old. I'm retired. I don't want to go back into the workplace. Okay, that's fair. If you needed to, however, especially if you're in your home country, you could work a part-time job to make a little bit more money. That just would take the edge off a bit, especially until stuff kind of recovers, and then you can reevaluate. That's actually what we are doing right now. One of us is working a part-time job to make some money just to take the edge off so we can pay our expenses without worrying too much about what the investments are doing right now. That way we don't touch our investments and we kind of just put a pause on figuring out where we are right now. And it just gives us a bit of a safety net until we know what we want to do. Another option, and one that has become increasingly popular, especially with digital nomads, is working online. First of all, you could try and find some sort of online job, be it through editing, be it through video editing. Depends on what your skill set is. If you have an education, you can look at something related to your education. But really, your imagination is kind of the limit here. There's a website called Flex Jobs, and I'm not getting any money for recommending them. You have to pay a little bit, but they give a list of different jobs, especially for US and Canadian nationals, that you can look through and send out your applications. And who knows, you might find something that fits you and it fits your lifestyle too. Another option is teaching English. A lot of people do teach English, especially to people from China and whatnot. That's gone down since the Chinese government has kind of clamped down on foreign teachers, but it may be something you can still look into. Finally is kind of the own business online way of thinking. Maybe you're a good painter, maybe you're good at crafts, maybe you're good at teaching. Like there's a lot of different options with your personal business. So, and on top of that, there's YouTube, there's blogs, there's vlogs, there's maybe you're good at cooking and you can teach a cooking class online. Maybe you're a great guitar player and you can do guitar. Like really your imagination's the limit here. And the nice thing about these jobs is you can do them at home and you can do something you love. So I don't really consider it as difficult as, say, maybe going out to find a job. But I think doing something you love that maybe was a hobby that you can try and churn into a little bit of extra income is a possibility. So being on a fixed income is tough. Let's not pretend, especially if you've just got your Social Security and you're trying to figure out how to make things work. It's hard. And the environment we're in right now is all about survival. If you have a bit of investments that maybe was helping out your Social Security and you're sitting going, oh my God, what am I going to do? Hopefully these few little tips help you out in a way that will let you survive until the markets hopefully come back. And let's all fingers crossed and hope things are looking good in the financial future for the market and for the economy as a whole. So I hope this video was of a help. And you know what? Let's all do a little bit of good thinking, good thoughts, and let's look forward to the future. Stay safe and happy travels.